Welcome back to Dane's Theme Park Live, the podcast, Behind the Park series, the final episode of season 1, where we talk to those people who create creative concepts, come up with the next big thing, keep us entertained. And today I have my very first return guest, who was my guest for the very first episode of this. It is the CEO of Dreamworld, Greg Yong. Welcome back.
All right, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Now, last time you and I spoke, Rivertown was almost complete, ready to be open to the public. We were still a month and a half out. It's now been open since December 20th, December-ish 20th, I believe. And how is it, mate? What's the initial reactions been like, and how have you seen Rivertown evolve even over those last 4 months?
Yeah, it was. I remember you coming into the office at Dreamworld back, back then, and I said, oh yeah, we're going to make it, but it was a big push towards the end. Weather was really tough, and literally, yeah, it was a huge effort from everyone, our builder, the whole team to get it done. But we got there in the end, and it's been a real hit, pleasingly. So it's a difficult thing because we're really close to it. Every one of the team involved are really close to it, and so you get to a point where you wonder, like a lot, whether it's going to be good enough, and you kind of lying in bed at night going, "Gee, I hope this is the right thing that we've done here," and all that. But it's been a real positive for the park, I think, in terms of how well it's been received. All elements, to be honest, too. Like Jungle Rush has been really good. That's where the money is, obviously, but we're really so happy with how Murray City Motors has gone. And the other thing that's been an absolute hit has been Jane's, which we put a lot of time into it, and we really just chuffed that that's worked out so well. Still not right, and we're looking across the board at what else we can continue to do in terms of improvement across the whole land. But I think we've got more hits than misses so far, and it's always the case when you open, you don't quite get everything you want from day one, and we certainly didn't in the case of Rivertown. But I think luckily the things that really mattered, we managed to get there by hook or by crook, and it's been really good.
It's funny you mentioned those misses. I'm just curious in your eyes, because I know sort of perhaps from an enthusiast point of view what the expectations was, but from your point of view, really close to the subject, if you want to discuss them, what
Yep.
were some of those misses that you feel that weren't quite on point when it opened? Because when I first walked through that land, I know you've seen that video of mine.
Mm.
I was blown away by absolutely
Yeah.
everything. So, in your view, what did you think you missed the mark on? If you want to discuss those things.
No, happy to. Yeah, look, I just think that the thematic piece for us wasn't quite there. We had some issues in the lead up to all of that. So a lot of the fencing, for example, it wasn't what we were looking to do. I can assure you that we didn't have any chain mesh fencing in the land at all. It burns me up watching videos from people saying they didn't think about this, because the problem, we absolutely did. But it doesn't matter. What you see is what you got. And we buggered it up on some of those things. Unfortunately, we just didn't get there in time. So we're trying to change all of that. Some of it, some of the fencing that you see up in the land, particularly around the temple, some of the timber fencing that's there, we had to do at the last minute as a change. And so the guys did a great job to source, um, you know, uh, aged timbers and all that kind of stuff from a local mob, and to do a really good job of it anyway. But yeah, things like the fencing wasn't happy about. Things like the experience in the switchback, not what we wanted it to be. The waterfall and the gem up on the top of the temple wasn't there either, and that was a real. And there's a lot more, but overall, look, I can assure you, we sat there wondering, is this the right thing to do in terms of opening it as it was, and we thought, on the balance of things, at the end of the day, what would be worse? And I think the decision was, if we didn't open it, it would be a hell of a lot worse than not opening it, as we anticipated it would have been. And so we made the decision to go ahead. And I know some people will say, well, if it wasn't right, why did you, and all that? But we felt it was more right than wrong, a lot more right than wrong. And the things that we knew weren't there, we thought that most people would look at and probably say, well, look, it's really good and the kids loved it. And, the enthusiast is a little bit different to the general
Oh, 100%.
punter. And I think most families would have been rapt to have got to see the land as it was. And I think we would have let more people down if we didn't open it on time than we would have if we said, oh, look, it's just not to our standard, and, we're not going to do it. So, yeah. And look, if it wasn't good enough, we wouldn't have opened it. There's absolutely no way we would have opened it. But I thought it was, where it was enough for people to have a really good experience. And so we made the decision to go ahead, and now we're continuing, as you've seen, to constantly evolve the area. And you're seeing little bits every time you come in terms of things in the queue line, things on the outside of the buildings, and things like that.
It's funny you say that because when you, from an enthusiast and a general public perspective, we didn't know what to expect. So those things that you knew were missing, we didn't know were missing. So like experiencing it for the first time, you know what I mean? It was like, oh, this is amazing. This is the world's first incline switchback. We're going through these 3 rooms. There's a really cool sort of, had an idea of what it could be. We had an idea there'll be some bats there, but it wasn't, you know what I mean? It's not like we had something that got taken away and given back again. It was just, this is it. And so seeing the land evolve then has been exciting because like, oh, there's more. And now we're just going, is there any more, Greg? Or are we done for now?
There's a bit more, yeah. So the switchback's not quite where it needs to be yet. There's some really key pieces in the switchback which are missing. And so we're working through that. The tunnels that we kind of fly in and out of the temple, there's a little bit more to do in those spaces. You'll see that there's a waterfall above the load station, which isn't activated yet. So there's a lot of things like that. Fencing's another area. Lots of things. And then, I think as the land grows in, it'll look really nice as well. We spent a lot of money right at the death. The last kind of week, really, just putting more and more plants in, like literally. I think we ordered $30,000 worth of plants 4 days before opening because we just weren't happy with where it was. And it's still, it looks pretty good, I think. But I can see how much it's grown in even since we opened, and it's really starting to come along now. We have lots of good chats with Wendy, our grounds manager there, and the heliconias and other things are really starting to come good. So it's getting better, and I think in a couple of years it'll look magic down there. So yeah, it's one of those things. We're never absolutely satisfied, but again, I think it's doing the job, and the reviews have been really, really good from everyone. The best part about it is, on the weekends when we're in watching the ride go around, you see kids that just make height, jump on, and you think, wow, it's just going to go, because when you get on it, there's a bit more to it than it looks, and these kids just jump off and run around and go again. So it's everything that we were hoping it would have been, and even that was to be frank with you, was a bloody worry, because at the end of the day, we're sending that ride around in the middle of the night as we did the commissioning, and it looked really Vekoma level in terms of super smooth, but I'm always like, oh, Jesus, is it going to have enough kind of kick in it? And it does. So it's been a really, really good hit across the board with that. Murrissippi Motor's been fantastic, and again, the restaurant's been a real hit as well.
Yeah, I must admit, James was a surprise, and I think what you've done in there is superb. You've turned a buffet restaurant that's, let's be honest, Billabong probably wasn't being utilised to its full potential while it was sitting there. It served its purpose, but what definitely wasn't driving what Jane's is. And I remember walking in with my 4-year-old, and her face just lit up, and she just ran off. And I was like, wait, get back here. She just wanted to explore it. So seeing people experience the land and those places for the first time must be a big thrill for you, because I know you've spent a lot of time down there. I was in Jane's once, and you were serving drinks behind the bar.
Yeah. Well, everyone is, just Saturday, we knew it was going to be fairly busy, so we were all in on Saturday. And so, Mel, our office manager, in there washing the dishes. I'm not much good at anything, so I kind of get put in the bar because I can press the Coke button, press the Sprite button, and I'm okay with the lemon lime bitters, and I like to make the cocktails. But look, it really is a full team effort, and so we have people from operations, we have people from all over the park jumping in to help. It's actually really enjoyable to get out there and do that kind of stuff rather than just the normal day-to-day stuff that we worry about every day. So, it's time that we haven't got in some way. So a lot of people put in weekends, and, we had Amy's our general manager of finance, and she was in there on Friday, for example, waiting tables. So it's been that kind of, I think the good thing is it's been busy enough that we've had to go and help, which is, where we'd like it to be. It'd be a concern if we weren't seeing that kind of trade in there, but so far it's been really, really popular.
And I can definitely see it evolving as well with food options, and you're opening now for Dreamworld night markets as well, which is super exciting. I know we're only 4 months into the land opening. Can we talk about the future of the land? Are there phase 2 plans in the works that you can discuss?
We've built the whole thing on purpose to plan for the future. Look, I don't want to kind of set up wrong expectations, if you will, but when we were doing Rivertown, we thought really hard about, is that the right attraction for us, doing a family coaster? And so we did a lot of survey work. We also did a lot of work looking at what we've got in our mix what's popular in our mix, what our competitors have, what other parks around the world are seeing success with, and we kind of landed on doing this unique switchback coaster. But we had a number of different ideas on the table. We absolutely had the idea to put the paddle steamer, or a variant of the paddle steamer, back on the Murrissippi. We had some kind of water attraction on the Murrissippi as well. So we had all of these different things, and we had a host of different ideas. But in the end, we fell into trying to make this one unique and different, one for all the family, which I think it does. And then we felt that putting Murrissippi Motors or vintage cars back in and doing a really great job of a Dreamworld Classic was important. But obviously, with all these things in our mind, we've built the whole place to be able to grow it out over time. So clearly, we've retained the dock. We could have demolished that and gotten rid of it. We've built that so that one day in the future, do we want to do something there? We've got the capability to do it pretty easily. And then also, motor coasters, another area for us.
It's so amazing to see, and I know the expectations are high as well for Rivertown and the experience of that whole place. So let's move on from Rivertown for now, because I cannot wait to see what the future has for that area of the park. But of course, just at the end of Main Street, or sort of right in the middle of Main Street, there's a whole new transformation happening as we speak. If you're listening to this podcast, whenever this could be, that we've seen a concrete slab poured. Let's talk about King Claw. Where are we at with the construction, and do you feel like it's on time? Because at the moment, all we know is that it's going to be delivered later this year.
Yeah, I mean, the latest year is always theme park special talk, isn't it? Like, it's before Christmas, is what we're saying. And so far on track, yeah. What we don't want to do is set expectations and then have something outside of our control, let people down. So we're obviously trying to do everything we can to get it open as quickly as we can. Once we've committed the capital and we've got the money down for it, the sooner it's in the park, the better it is for everyone. So I think we're really proud of how we manage projects. We are really, really on the ball with projects. Our team are great with it. We are, partnered with great builders, and I think so far we've managed to deliver things on time every time. And that's the same with King Claw. It's as you say, we've got a slab poured on Thursday, which is one of the critical parts. All the in-ground works are now largely done, and you'll start seeing us start to go vertical in that area now, with the area of the station and some of those critical pieces starting to come up in terms of early block work and things like that. The ride itself is on the water. Lots of pieces will start to arrive in the park in the next little while. Some pieces are still, on the journey. There's one of the pieces, particularly the pendulum, is huge, and it's in one whole piece on its own. So getting that on the right ship at the right time has proven to be a challenge. It just doesn't fit into a container or anything like that, so it actually sits on top. So there's some challenges logistically with it, but they're all, unsurprising and things that we expect to have happen along the way. Causes a lot of stress and angst, I can assure you. But no, all looking good. And I think when it's done, it's going to be a real hit. I don't think people quite appreciate, how big a deal this will be. When we went through the motions about, are we going to be able to keep King Claw or keep the Claw? The thing that we were sure of is that we just couldn't possibly close it. If it was to close, if I was running another park anywhere else in Australia and I'd seen that had closed, I would buy one the very next day. So we think it's just a cracking ride, and I was lucky enough to ride it for the last time, and I hadn't ridden it for a few years, to be honest with you. And it was still a great ride as it was, but what we've got coming is something else. It really is spectacular. It's not even, a theme park person trying to make it more than what it is. It's a cracker. It will really, really be well received, I think. Hugely thrilling, but also really, really fun at the same time. So yeah, I'm excited for it, and I think people will be pleasantly surprised once they ride it.
It's just massive, so much bigger, and it's going to be like that presence in the street when you walk in. Right, we're going to see this thing.
Yeah.
Claw was such a big part of the Dreamworld skyline. Now King Claw is going to be, bigger, more of a king for the skyline of the park.
Yeah, I mean, the hub, we've got a really great thematic piece on that, so you'll see that from the highway, which will be good. The orientation kind of sets a little bit better, so you'll see a bit more from the highway. There's a whole story and a narrative that we've developed for the attraction, which we think is quite fun and makes sense and really kind of leans into Ocean Parade a bit more. So that'll be good. And then the ride itself is oriented just a little bit different on the site, so it kind of swings more north-south, if you will. So as you're walking up Main Street, you'll see it coming at you. on the ride, it's 50% higher than the current one. It goes through the station over 100 k's an hour, so it's you'll feel it as it goes through. Having stood there and watched just the same ride in other parks, it's just one of those things that people want to just watch and see. So I think it'll be really, really compelling. And yeah, I think again, it'll really change the skyline. It's weird coming in through the team member entry now at Dreamworld and not seeing the claw there.
Yeah.
So I can't wait for it to start going vertical. It'll probably be another couple of months, and you'll start seeing pieces go up. And dissimilar to a coaster in some ways, this thing will go up really quick, so it's not huge amounts of steel. It's big bits of steel, but it's not huge amounts of it. So it'll actually go up like lightning, and then, people will be asking us when we're going to open, but there's a lot more to be done.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all going very well so far.
Well, you've set the bar high with the theming with Rivertown, so I look forward to seeing what you can do with this type of thing.
Yeah.
I think we've been spoilt now. You've set the bar very high, so that's like the standard now, I think, expected
Yeah,
from
yeah,
That's a lot
it's
of
on our
pressure.
minds, put it that. Well, it's a bit different to Rivertown. So, will it be the same as Rivertown? It's not a whole new land,
Mm.
but we're certainly thinking more about just, the ride itself and then the surrounds of it. But this is more of an attraction than it is, a land, if you will. So it's it'll be different to Rivertown. It won't be quite the same, but we really feel that we want to do a good job of it, and it's definitely top of our minds is thinking, well, we don't want people to come and see Rivertown and then come out and see the claw and go, well, geez, they really stuffed this one up. So I think it'll be different. I think we've
Yeah.
got a good story that makes sense, I think, for it all, and I think that's really driven our creative choices around the thematic execution and all the other elements of the attraction. And I think it'll be really good when it's done.
Now, part of the park and the process with Rivertown and King Claw, and we're going to get to sort of the future of your annual passes a little bit later on because I've got a very interesting survey, and I'm looking forward to talk to you about that. But special occasion events, you've done a couple now after dark events for your pass holders. Of course, you've got the Street Food Festival, which is slowly wrapping up now. Snowy Nights, Happy Halloween. How important are these events to the park, and sort of what's the evolution behind them? Because I remember growing up during the school holidays visiting Dreamworld and used to have those big spectaculars like the Circus Spectacular and the High
Mm.
Dive Spectacular and the Pirate Spectacular.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
is there any chance of perhaps a reiteration of those coming back? Because I know Dreamworld's leading the nostalgia, or you're going to
yeah.
try to just evolve the ones that you have now established moving forward for Dreamworld.
We got an open mind on it, Dane. To be honest with you, like when I first started, we didn't have any of the big kind of school holiday style kind of events, if you will. So the things like when I first joined, we had Winterfest was already kind of on the way, but not quite what we were hoping it was going to be. So we really blew that up and made it bigger and better. And then we came up in 2019 and we did the first Happy Halloween, which was really innovative for the Gold Coast. I'd spent a lot of time in other places doing kind of quite dark Halloween stuff, and it was really great to do a family Halloween. I don't think anyone was doing that in a big way before, so that was great to put that into the park. And then, spring, we always thought we could do something good with spring. So, we've played around with that one. It hasn't been everything we've wanted it to be, and we've kind of iterated on that. It's now more of a Western event, and I think that makes sense with Western music and how popular that's been, or country music and how popular that's been. But along the way, we've done lots of different, what we call activations. So we've done things like the Monster Inflatable. We've done a Bluey experience or a Bluey show. We've done a Monster Truck show. And that Monster Truck thing, that was like a huge hit. Like I remember the first day we did that and we opened, that night we had a crew in and we were clearing more brush to be able to put more seating. It was so popular. So we've done a lot of those events. We also did circus with the Ashton family a few years ago. So we're up for doing those kind of different activations. The ones you're talking about that were big in the day, funnily enough, we've got a lot of the posters still around the offices and other parts of the park. So, we've had all sorts of unique kind of things over the years. My favourite one, the one I remember the most, is the high diving one. Like
Yeah.
I remember going to that as a kid, and it was mind blowing. Really, like now it probably doesn't look as full on, but when you're a little kid seeing that happen, it was something else. So we're open minded to all of those things. The high diving one would be a particular interest of mine because I've seen it done before. And look, we've had some conversation with different people around the world in terms of doing that. We had a good talk with some people at Europa Park, for example, that have done high diving over there into an area around an attraction in off season and things like that. So we're always open to doing more of that. But I think the same thing is that the other events that we do, so Halloween, Winterfest, the food festival, they will get bigger and bigger and bigger every year. We're not going to turn them off. We really believe that they're critical for pass holders in the main. But it's also important for people that are coming to the Gold Coast, and if they're looking at what park to go to and they look at all the lineup of attractions, that's great. But there's also a big part of the groups that come in that don't want to ride. And so what else can we offer them up? And so we think that those other events really do a good job of that as well. So we think it's both great for pass holders. We really want to make sure pass holders see value in their ticket. So it's not just 363 days a year of visiting the properties and also Sky Point, but it's also about what else can we give you that make you really get value out of it. And for us, we want people to use their pass. The more you use the pass, the better it is, and the more we've seen that people feel good about their interactions with us, the more value they get. So the last thing we want you to do is buy a pass and then use it twice. So the more that you use it, the better off it is in our minds. The better value you feel, and the more warm and happy memories you have for what we do here. So yeah, I think that they'll get bigger and better. We've just done a new thing with the Street Food Festival. We've got a new person that's looking after that, and he's done a fantastic job. He literally landed in LA about an hour ago. We've sent him over to the US, and his focus in life for the next 10 days is to get around to all of the parks that are running activations at the moment and just try to get as many good ideas as he possibly can out of it. So he's going to Knott's Berry Farm, he's going to Silver Dollar City, he's going to SeaWorld, he's going to Epcot, he's going to Dollywood, he's going all over the place. With a part of it really focused on food, but part of it just on what are the other inclusions that really make these events pop. So yeah, if that's an indication as to how passionate we are about it, that's probably a good sign.
Very much so. Now you mentioned there, we'll hook around to that now. The annual pass survey that got sent out, I thought that was really fascinating, and I love how what you're doing is you're asking us what we want as local regulars who go to the parks frequently with our families or for special events and want to experience the parks differently, because it could just be the same offering, right? But obviously you need to keep people coming back. Why is that so important to you to get right? And I think you touched on a bit then, but asking us, do we want rewards? Do we want to have a cheaper option? Do we want to have the opportunity to access things before everybody else? I think that's really important. So you're obviously really leaning into and really finding out what makes your regular visitors click.
I think the ticketing models that have been in theme parks, there's not been a huge amount of innovation in them for the last, I don't know, several years, to be honest. Pricing, I don't think is innovation. Pricing kind of changes a lot, depending on macro conditions and things like that. But I think at the end of the day, the idea that you can buy a single day ticket, a multi-day ticket for certain amounts of days, and then an annual pass, they're not kind of news stories. But I think when I think about annual pass, it's an area that I think we've got more opportunity to innovate and make some change in. There's a bit of a view of the world that annual pass holders come to a property or a group, and then they migrate to other groups, and they kind of swap and change. And we'd love to kind of see people feel more engaged and more part of the family here and stay with us for longer. And so the only way we're going to do that is to really listen into what they've got to say and how can we help that experience get better and better and better. So there'll always be people that'll kind of ebb and flow with new attractions. That's kind of par for the course. We get that. But I think there's also a lot of people that have a real affinity for a particular park, and they feel that they're part of that family. And so anything we can do to learn about that and try to really customize and think hard about what that program looks like is really interesting to us. So as you say, it's amazing what happens when you ask people what they think. And so we're thinking that maybe the best way to start that is ask pass holders that are already with us what would really be valuable to them. And we're throwing a heap of different ideas out. And we're open to new ideas as well. So if anyone's got ideas, we'd encourage them to shoot them through to us, because whatever we can learn, we're really interested in trying to integrate it into our offer. Doesn't mean we'll do it all, but I think there's a lot of things that so far in the early kind of feedback that we're getting has been pretty popular so far.
Yeah, it's just, I think, nice to be thought of. Like, I got the email. I don't know, you've got thousands of pass holders, but I got the email. I was just like, oh, this is really nice, unexpected. You know what? I'm actually going to take the time to do this because it matters to me and my family on what is available to us when we visit these parks on the Gold Coast. As you said, there's a lot of variety, a lot of choice. Some people are just coming for a week. They're not fortunate
Yeah.
like I am to be able to visit every weekend if I want to.
Yeah.
So to be asked, I was like, oh, these guys are thinking of me. And I felt warm and fuzzy. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have my say. It's like voting in an election, right? You might not get your way, but at least you've had your say. And I think that's really
Yeah.
important. I love the fact you guys are listening to that. And if you do take the feedback on board, that is so appreciative. So I'm talking on behalf of every pass holder right now. I think that's great what you're doing, Greg. And I hope you do get some really positive, not stupid feedback, but really constructive feedback. I know I tried to frame my feedback that way, that like goes, that might they want to think about, because a lot of,
Yeah.
say, enthusiasts or these people who buy annual passes look at the Disneys and the Universals and see how they are rewarding their pass holders. And it'll be nice to see that integrated a bit into our parks, because there's no reason we can't do what they do.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. And look, I just think that the more that we can get closer to the guests, the better off we're going to be. You hear us talk about the Dreamworld difference all the time, and the
Mm.
Dreamworld difference is what we think makes us unique and different in terms of what people feel when they come to Dreamworld. We spend every week, we try to have, a coffee with the guests and just find out what's on their mind and how their day's been, more than just saying good day in the park, but really kind of take a minute and try to ask the question as to how their day really has been and what's been good, what's been not so good, so we can learn from it. Like, I can tell you that we are laser focused on that guest experience stuff. So we respond to every single Google review. We all read them literally every single day. Mel, who runs our office, she's pretty close to it in the main. And if there's a really bad one, I get an email, or if there's any bad ones, I get an email straight away with that, and we'll take that on board straight away and deal with it. So it's really a hot topic for us. And so yeah, we'd love to do more and more to get closer to annual pass holders. And so I'd love to be doing the town halls that we do for the team for annual pass holders once every quarter or something like that. I don't know how that'd go yet, but I think there'd be a lot of people that would be quite interested in it. Some people would go, look, it's not my thing, but I think there'd be a lot of people quite interested in that as well. So the more we can do to show what goes on at the parks, how we make decisions, what we're on about, and help kind of explain why we do things that we do and how that might influence the guest experience, the better. So yeah, it's something that we're super, super passionate about. We think it's outside of safety, the guest experience in our minds is the number one priority. And so we spend a lot of time on it, and we're far from good at it, right now. But
Mm.
I've got a bit of an aspiration that service at Dreamworld really should be the best service that you'll get in the country. I think service in Australia generally is pretty lackluster. If you kind of think about it, outside of your local coffee shop or someone that you go to a lot, I don't know if you could say, oh look, this company is particularly incredible at service. Any big kind of major retailer or any big airline, or I don't think anyone's that particularly strong at it. And so for mine, it's probably not that lofty an ambition, but I really think that we should be famous for service here at in Australia from our properties. And so it's one of those things that we're really focused on, and it's we're not there yet, but I reckon we can do it. So yeah, and this is part of that whole plan.
That's excellent. And part of those offerings, obviously, to invite people back are what you're doing in the parks. For example, the train retracking. Obviously, you got stopped for the Rivertown
Yeah.
construction. How is the train
Yeah.
retracking going for a full loop of Dreamworld once more?
It's good. Yeah, look, it's there's a lot going on around the Rivertown site to get right first, and that's why we haven't started actually putting track down yet. But that's starting soon, So and we've managed to do a lot of work, which doesn't sell any tickets at all, but we've done a lot of work around all the in-ground utilities that are around the park. So it's a 40-year-old park or over 40-year-old park, and so it's got all the problems that happen when you have lots of iterations of different owners and things like that. So we've taken a bit of time and we spent a lot of money to just get all of the utilities, all of the data and the electrical and sewer and all that kind of stuff sorted out. And it really kind of runs along that main train line on purpose. And so the most important thing we want to do now is make sure the train doesn't go and stuff all that up by driving piers through, newly laid data and things like that. So we've got to get that right, which is all part of the plan. But yeah, it's all going to start pretty soon. You'll start seeing track go down. As to when it's going to happen, look, we're shooting for the middle of the year. It's a bit of a push, but yeah, again, it's one of those ones. The sooner we get that done, the better off it is for everyone. We want it more than anyone else, but we just want to make sure it's right as well. So
Another part that's just sort of recently been undergone some construction and opened recently too is a new Tiger Walk, which I think is absolutely fantastic above Tiger Island there. Obviously, a big part of that is conservation, and you have moved away from the direct handler interaction, and the presentations have
Yeah.
sort of stopped for now. Are we going to see the return of those tiger presentations in the park, and
Yeah.
what will they look like without that tiger handler sort of contact?
Yeah, so we will. It's actually something that we're working on right now. We had a meeting on it just last week. We've got some external people helping us on it as well. Look, it won't be the same as what it was. Obviously, it's harder to make those kind of behaviours happen when you have less proximity with the animals. But we do think we can do some really fun things still as well, and do a really riveting presentation there that tells a great story about the majesty of what the tigers are, but also I think really sell this whole piece around conservation and what we really do at DWF. I don't think people really quite have a handle on just what a big deal it is. We have a great relationship with the London Zoo, and they, through our association in the UK called Wildcats, run all the projects that DWF is involved in. And to have projects going on in Sumatra, to have projects going on in Vladivostok and all over the world, doing things like habitat conservation, anti-poaching, education for locals about how to interact and live with tigers in their areas. All that kind of stuff is just hugely popular. Internally, and we spend a lot of time on it with Wildcats, but we don't really tell that message, in my mind, well enough in the park. And so I think that you can expect that the presentation will do a lot of that, but it still needs to be entertaining as well. I think if it's just pure education, it probably doesn't have the same fun as well. So we want to try to get that right as well. So there's a bit going on with it. At the same time, I think you can get it maybe too much on the entertainment side. And I've seen, say, at SeaWorld in the US, where they had to change, their orca presentation, and it went from what it was to now being quite a theatrical affair. And there's a lot going on when you see those presentations, and ours is probably going to be somewhere in between that and what it was. So a lot going on with that. And again, the hardest part about all of this is that the tigers need to kind of integrate into this new show, or kind of to get used to all the new things that we're looking to do. So it's one of those things we'd love to be able to just say, hey, it's going to change on Monday and let's give it a crack. But once we've got the show where we want all the presentation where we want it to be, the tigers have got to be conditioned and work through all of that too. And they've got free choice; they can choose not to do anything. And that's probably the best part about the program that we have, is that the tigers are not forced to do anything that they don't want to do. So we've got to think about then, how do we integrate that into the presentation so that whatever the tiger decides to do, we can still make sure we have this thing hang together and make sense to the guests when they're watching. So it will be something. It's being worked on heavily, and it'll be as soon as it's ready, we'll be letting everyone know.
Awesome. That's really cool to hear. Let's move across the road to WhiteWater World, Greg. How's it tracking over there? Obviously, it's about to close seasonally, but depending on when you listen to the podcast, it's probably already closed. If not, it's only got a couple of weekends still to go. How's it progressing over there? Obviously, is it still a priority? I know a lot's gone on at Dreamworld. You said those earthworks and everything else to get everything right. Is there a focus on WhiteWater World still? Or are you happy just sort of where it's at? Probably that. No, I know the answer to that question is definitely no. But where are you at with WhiteWater World?
Yeah, no. So we're working on it as we speak in terms of new product for WhiteWater World. So it's definitely due for a new injection of new capital. We're working on what that would look like. We've been working on that for probably 18 months now as to what it could be. We probably have a bit more work to do to make sure that we do think that we've got the right idea there. We're probably less enamored with high thrill water attractions. It's probably not really where we want to go in the next little while. And so for us, making sure that we put the right product in that's going to help the park and its capacity and throughput is really important. So we can spend a lot of money there and not actually make the experience any better if we're not careful. So we've got a few different options on the table. We're working with all of the large providers in that space, as you'd imagine, and we're working through what those different options look like. It's absolutely a focus of ours, but Dreamworld has been probably just a higher order issue for us. We spent a lot of time early on when I joined the parks trying to get WhiteWater World just to feel like it really had, you know, a lot more care taken in it. And so we've spent a lot of time in the park trying to just get the place looking clean and tidy. We spent a lot of money on infrastructure maintenance and trying to get the slides and the towers and all that looking, tip top, which they do. We spend a lot of time around the culture in WhiteWater World as well. So we spent a huge amount of time and effort on aquatic safety. So if you see, I think if you jump into our wave pool and see how our guards look after their zones and that look after their water compared to other places around the world, we're in the top 10% of the parks in the world, I think, around aquatic safety. So those things have been for us high order. Let's get those things right first. And now, we're looking at what else can we add to the park. And we need it because, this holidays that we just had, it was probably not as good an experience as we would like because the park was so busy. That's a quality problem for us to have. And so now we've got to deal with that and make sure we get it right in terms of the new product that goes in. But yeah, as I say, I probably, to be really clear, it's not going to be high thrill. It's not really what our mind is kind of focused on at the moment. But what we do want to do is make sure that what we do put in is unique and different. There's no point us putting something else in that you can do elsewhere. So we've really got to try to work hard at that. And the problem is there's not many suppliers in the water park space. So there's trying to get innovation going in the right product is a bit trickier in the water park space. So it's a bit going on in that.
Is part of that expenditure in the park not just a new attraction, but perhaps removing those attractions that I'm going to speculate here that are no longer operational? So things like the Wedgie, Triple Vortex, and a couple of the fully six slides. Is that part of this sort of movement forward for WhiteWater World and this new attraction?
Yeah, not all of those will go, but some will
Okay.
for sure. Yeah, and we want to get all of that cleaned up. I think you've seen from us, we're not fans of keeping things that are standing but not operating, standing and not operating for very long. But at the same time, we want to make sure we do the due diligence and make certain that we want to remove something for sure before we go ahead and go and do it. It's pretty hard to undo once we start. So you will see all of those things resolved as part of this next program at WhiteWater World. And again, we kind of feel really strongly about that. So, I don't think there's anything at Dreamworld that's been sitting there. We did a lot of that in terms of taking our medicine, if you will, and cleaning up some of those older attractions, and that's been done. It wasn't easy, but we got it done, and that'll be the same at WhiteWater World as well. We'll remove the things that don't make sense in our minds. Some of them do, and so some of the things you mentioned there, we'll probably try to retain. But we want to, that's a whole of business decision. It's not something that I just decide on my own. I have the entire team gets pretty involved, or very involved in that. Safety is probably the first and foremost priority when we think about those decisions. Not long after that is maintenance in terms of complexity to maintain things and, making sure that we feel comfortable that we can look after these things for the long term. Things like the Tower of Terror, for example, we'd love to have kept that ride going, but you've probably seen recently in the US that they've just closed the last one of them. We came to that view a few years ago that we would love to have kept it, but we just didn't feel comfortable that we had the support that we needed to maintain that attraction. And so when we look at these kind of decisions, all of those factors go in. Operations, marketing, they all have a say in all of this. But yeah, that'll all come out in the next little while as we kind of finalise the plan for WhiteWater World.
Awesome stuff. Now, you did just mention Tower of Terror. Can I ask you what's happening with that building?
Well, I can't knock it down because it's too good to kind of take it out, and I've got 4 or 5 different cool ideas there,
And
and
they
I'm
are.
just trying to the right one right. Yeah, I saw a great hotel over in Europe last year that I thought was a ripper and it could do really well there, but I haven't quite got the team over the line on that one. But look, there's a lot of different ideas that we could do in that space, and so to go and knock it down and then put something back up in the same place would be a bit of a shame. So it's a really interesting part of the park, and so yeah, it is getting painted. That's part of the Rivertown continual upgrade work that we're doing. So you'll see that it'll get painted to kind of look less intrusive, if you will, from on the land as you walk through. But that's the kind of first phase. We've got heaps of different ideas in it. Just can't get to the right one just yet.
If
Maybe
you
if
need
you've
a
got an idea,
sounding
you can tell
board,
me all that. Yeah.
mate, I'm more than happy. I said, if you want to run those past me, we can brainstorm some together. Great, this has been so great. I do just want to get your views and on opinions on something that's just happened over in the United States. A $13 billion theme park has just opened called Epic Universe. Are you visiting, and would it be of interest to you or Dreamworld to go and perhaps see what they've done, how they're doing things, and what could you? Because I know you're traveling this week. Are you off to Epic Universe tomorrow?
No, I'm not. No, no, no. It's a separate thing. So, not going to that as an exciting part of the world. No, look, I reckon that Universal is doing a great job globally. We've got a few friends at Universal. We've got a few Australians at Universal as well, which is great. And obviously through Alara and IAPA, we have really good connections with industry. In fact, we had some people from Universal out not that long ago, having a look around at some things at Dreamworld. So, we have a good relationship with them. And I think that Epic Universe is just incredible in terms of what that park is. I mean, I've been lucky enough to go to some pretty cool parks in my time. Shanghai Disney, for example, is one of those ones you just go, wow, like it's a whole nother world again. But I'm super keen to get over there. I think I might be going in November to IAPA to do some work with Alara and IAPA. And I'll definitely try to find a sneaky day to get out there and have a look at it. I was talking to one of our great manufacturing partners who has a ride out there, and they were telling us that they're going to book it out for a night with IAPA, so that'd be pretty cool. But look, I think it looks incredible. I saw some of the other. I saw someone else that is in the fraternity in Australia over there only this week, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I'm excited to get out there and have a look at it. But we like seeing all parks. Like I say, we've got our events person over in the US literally this week, and he's not going to all of those kind of Disney's and Universals only. He'll have a look at those for sure. But we really think that there's some value in seeing the regional parks. I love family-owned parks as well, or unique ownership model parks. So I was lucky enough when we did the work for King Claw to go over and see some parks in Europe, and I think meeting the families and the people that own these properties is quite unique and maybe even quite different to the corporately held properties as well. I think some corporate held properties are really good, some are really bad. But I think family ownership is just a really unique model where the passion in the people there and the way that they think about their businesses, they just think about it in terms of generations as opposed to next half, what's the number going to be? And so, they're the people that we look up to and aspire to be. We're a public company, but we also try to think that we run it like we own it, and we try to run it like it's a family company as well. So, Universal, cool. We'll go and have a look at Epic, and there's always good ideas in anything that's new and different that we can learn from. But at the same time, we like the little parks as well. Right? They're the good ones.
Well, I was about to say, Greg, with how you're facing everything and tackling everything at Dreamworld, you are definitely handling it I feel like a family park, but I know we are, or Dreamworld is a ASX held company, so there's a board of directors and everything else to deal with. But I do feel like you are treating it like a family owned park, so you should take some great pride in that. Just before we wrap up, Greg, what would one message be to anybody listening to this podcast that you'd like to share about Dreamworld and the future of Dreamworld towards the end of this year and into the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years?
Look, I think the biggest thing is there's a lot of people that have been, and they're surprised once they've come back to Dreamworld to see how good it is. But there's so many people that have visited long ago that haven't been back yet. And a big part of what I'm worried about at the moment is how do I find a way to make sure that people that haven't been to Dreamworld for years and years and years give us another crack and have a look, because I think every time we get a new person or a person back, that hasn't been for a long time, the feedback is every time overwhelmingly positive. And so we're doing a lot of work around that, looking at people that have visited, back before 2015, 2016, those earlier kind of really popular days of Dreamworld, and finding a way to get back to those people and say, look, you should give us another crack because it's different. I think it's really, the last few years it's really come along. We've got a great culture with the team, and I think it's just a unique and different environment for people to come and try out. So the biggest thing I'd say is if you haven't been for a long time, try to have another look at us and see what you reckon, because I think you'll be hopefully pleasantly surprised.
I reckon they would be too, Greg. I must thank you. It's not every day that you can get the CEO of a theme park to sit down for 45 minutes to have a conversation, and you've done it twice with me, and I am very grateful to you and the Dreamworld team, mate. Really appreciate it, and thank you very much for being the guest once again, the final guest for season 1 of Dane's Theme Park Life Behind the Parks series on the podcast, mate. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to see you making me that cocktail at Jane's Rivertown restaurant when you're back behind the bar next time I'm in.
Easy done, mate. No worries.